All right, welcome everybody. I am so excited that you are here tonight. This is such a special call. This is a client call for our sisterhood communities and also for Kim Fitzpatrick's Live in Your Light community. I'm so happy that some of you guys are joining us tonight, and it's going to be really great. So we have author Sara Best here. She is a registered holistic nutritionist and known as the nutritionist who never talks about food. So I'm kind of interested to hear about that. And I discovered her through another coach on our team. She recommended this book. In January, I started talking really openly about my struggles with emotional eating. And as somebody who has battled addiction and overcome so many different addictions, it's become really clear to me that I replaced them with food. So I started talking really vulnerably about emotional eating. Someone recommended this book to me, and I just felt so many incredible breakthroughs while I was reading the book. Like, I actually only read 10 pages at a time on purpose because I felt there were so many takeaways from each little batch that I wanted to sit on it and sort of wait that out. So welcome, Sara. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm thrilled to be here. I am thrilled that I get to see all your lovely faces. This is amazing. And also, I just need to say, in leading up to this, so many of you guys have been chatting about the book on Instagram and stuff, and I just can feel the magic of your amazing communities here. And I just think it's phenomenal. I think community is everything, and you guys are doing it.
Agreed.
Good. It's
Agreed.
good.
Thank you for that. So what we'll do, I guess, is we're going to lead with Q&A. I did ask a bunch of clients within different communities if they had any questions for you. Some gave me really tactical, specific questions about the book, but I also want this just to be a general discussion with you for people that haven't read the book, because I know there's probably a lot of women that might have bought the book and not even read it yet, right? So the first thing that I wanted to ask you was, I polled my community and I asked them, what's the number one thing you're struggling with right now? And it was a resounding emotional eating. Can you talk about why you think this generation of women has such a bad relationship with food?
Oh, wow. We're just getting right into it, eh? We're just going right there. I love it. I love it. I'm here for it. Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. Usually the number one thing I get is nighttime snacking. Usually I do really well all day and then all goes out the window at night. So I can see some of you nodding about that. But yeah, to me, that's all part and parcel of emotional eating. And why do we struggle with this so much? I think because, look, our choices around food, when it comes to making not so great choices around food, are really just a manifestation of what's going on inside. This is why I say, like, people joke that I'm the nutritionist that never talks about food, because I think the food part is actually kind of easy. I know people hate when I say that, but like, you guys are all smart women. You probably know more than the average bear about what to eat and what not to eat and all that. Like, you don't need a lot more information about that. It's the way we act with food, the choices we make around food, the relationship we have created with food is just, as I say, a manifestation of what's going on inside of you. So the fact that so many, I'm going to say women here because I think men have their own issues with food, but obviously that's a different conversation. I think the reason that so many women struggle with emotional eating is because we're not dealing with all the stuff inside, right? We're not dealing with the fact that we're exhausted, that we're overwhelmed, that we live in an entire society that's designed to tell us that we're failing and wrong and not good enough and too old and too fat and too saggy and our hair's the wrong shape and our eyebrows are wrong, or like all the things that are wrong with us. That put together with all the stuff we heap on ourselves and all the stuff that gets heaped on us by other people, it's too much. It's too much for one person to handle. And so it's natural that we turn to food because it's there, it's convenient, it's already wired. Your brain is wired to love things like sugar, salt, and fat. So it becomes sort of this perfect storm, right? We have all this stuff inside us that we're not dealing with in sort of an effective, healthy way. And then you bring in 24-hour convenience foods that taste wonderful and for a moment make us feel good, for a moment make us feel calm, peaceful, like we're taking care of ourselves. I kind of think that emotional eating is sort of a quasi form of self-care. It's like a It's like a not very effective way of self-care, but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to care for ourselves. We're trying to soothe ourselves. We're trying to love ourselves. And food makes at one level, it makes perfect sense. It's there, it's easy, it's convenient. Again, your brain is already hardwired to want all those things. Food manufacturers know that, so they put it all together in the perfect ratios of sugar, salt, and fat. And why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? That's a very long answer to a very short question.
No, absolutely. And I think like it sort of leads into one of the other ones I had, for so many of us, it's not the lack of knowledge that we have, right? We have the knowledge. It's like, I know what to do. I'm just not doing it, right? Isn't that such like a common thing? And something that we learned in this book is that the patterns of our brain creates like it's the patterns our brain creates surrounding eating. I think it was really freeing to read that it takes time to break these habits. Like that was one of the things, like, why would you expect this to change overnight? It takes time to break these habits. Could you maybe elaborate
on that? It takes practice. It's not just time, it's practice over time. You have to practice new habits, right? That's how neural pathways are formed in the brain, by practicing. You didn't, like when you learn to walk, all of you that have beautiful babies here in these photos, when your babies learn to walk, like they have to practice. Nobody has neural pathways around anything except breathing. There's only two things the human body does naturally when you're born, and that's breathe and startle at loud noises. It's the only two things that we don't require any practice. And so anything else, any other behaviors that you're going to do require practice. And we understand that about things like walking or playing the trumpet or learning a new language, right? We don't say like, oh, well, I watched this YouTube on playing a trumpet and now I should have that all figured out. Like, what's wrong with me? No, it takes time. And so building new habits takes time, especially when you've been practicing something else for decades, right? Like you've been practicing a current relationship with food. You've been practicing turning to food when you're stressed, turning to food when you're exhausted, turning to food to show yourself love, turning to food for whatever reasons. You've been practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing. Like we've been doing this every day, multiple times a day for decades. And so of course you're really good at that. Of course that's your pattern. Of course that's your default. And so doing something different would be like trying to learn how to write with your non-dominant hand. Like it would feel really awkward at the beginning, really uncomfortable. You would have to really think about it. You'd have to really force yourself to do it. You would want to stop because it would be hard, but you practice and practice and practice, and anything gets easier with practice. You literally it can't not get easier. That's how your brain works. Anything you repeat becomes easier. So yes, it takes time, but it's practice over time.
I love that. And it kind of removes, I said in the chat there, it takes the failure out of starting again, right? Just practicing. What do you say to the woman that has been practicing for 5 years?
Yeah. Oh, I want to give you a big hug, because this is what I see just constantly in my work, right? Like most of my work is around women just beating themselves up and just being horrible to themselves and just saying horrible things to themselves and feeling horrible about themselves. And it makes me so sad so much of the time to see how hard people are on themselves. So a couple of things. One, I would say, be patient and compassionate with yourself, which sounds obvious, but like, think about it in the sense of like, what would you say to a friend that came to you? Your best friend comes to you and says, oh my God, I've been doing this for like 5 years and I feel like I'm still where I was at the beginning. Would you say to her, yes, you are a huge failure. You suck. Like you are never going to figure this out. Like you have done nothing. I don't even know why you bother. Like you would never say that to a friend, right? So I would just encourage you to like try to talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend. I would also say that we are very bad judges of our position, right? We are very, very bad at this. And this is why I encourage clients to keep what I call an evidence journal. And I think I mentioned it in the book, but I think we're so good at focusing on the negative, right? Which again is sort of like how we started this conversation, all the things we were so hard on ourselves about, all the ways we're failing. We really focus on that. Again, that is sort of also how your brain is wired, but we don't need to go into all the science around that. But your brain is wired to look for the negative. So we really focus on that when people tell me that they've been trying this for years and nothing's changed, I know that's not true. That's not possible, right? It's not possible. There's no way that nothing has changed. First of all, literally every cell in your body is different than it was 6 weeks ago. So you've definitely changed. You've definitely learned things. You're not the same person that you were. Now, maybe you had an idea of where you think you should be now, or where you wanted to be now, or something that probably has something to do with some number on the scale. But there's so many other ways that you've 1000% changed and shifted and grown and moved. And so I always encourage clients to keep like an evidence journal, like, and what I mean by that is like literally every day writing down all the amazing things that you did, because you made tons of good choices. You learned new things, you thought new things, you noticed new things. Like, of course you did. We just don't see that stuff. But when you keep an evidence journal, and then, at the end of every week, if you kind of just make a habit of just flipping through that evidence journal and just realizing like, cow, I actually did a lot of good things. Like I walked by that donut shop this morning when I kind of wanted to go in, or, I had one piece of pizza when I kind of wanted to, or I had 4 pieces of pizza when I kind of wanted 6, like whatever. Or I read a new book, or I listened to a podcast, or I came to an event like this. Like, these should all go in the evidence journal, because these are all things that are moving you forward, that are changing who you are. So we get so fixated on like, I need this one thing to happen, and that will mean I have changed, whether it's a number on the scale or clothes fitting a certain way or something. I require this one thing to happen, and then I will be good enough. Like, this doesn't work. And so we just have to think about all the ways we have changed, and just, again, it's habit, right? It's a habit to focus on the negative. It's a habit to be obsessed with that one parameter of transformation that we have chosen. And we just have to practice a different way of thinking about ourselves and our journey,
Mm-hmm.
And also that's the thing, like, too, I think that there's no finish line. I think we should embrace the journey. Like, I'm sure everyone here loves personal development work. Like, you wouldn't be here if you didn't just love this stuff, right? Like, you love reading books like this. You love listening to podcasts. You love Brene Brown, and we love them all. We love it all. And what better thing to do with your life than keep growing and learning and trying? Like, I feel like that's good.
Yeah.
I don't need to get anywhere. I'm good. Like, I just want to stay on the journey. I think as long as you're still moving forward, you're doing great. The mantra I always say to myself when I'm having a really crappy day, and because I feel all those things too, is just go slow, don't stop. I just keep saying to myself, like, just go slow, don't stop. That's all I have to do. And maybe I just do one little thing today. Maybe I just go for a little walk. Maybe I just, I don't know, make myself a nice piece of fruit for a snack. I don't know. Maybe I just go to bed early, but just go slow, but don't stop.
I don't need to get anywhere. I love that. That is so good.
There's nowhere to get. Like, where are we trying to get?
Where are we trying to get?
This is it. We're us. Yeah. We're amazing. We're learning. We're growing. Like, what else is there?
And I see that often with just our lives in general, right? Like, I'm going to start this when, instead of just we're here, we're already here. Okay, one tactical question, and then I'm going to segue into your habit loop. But with the evidence journal, do you recommend to your clients that they use it solely for nutrition?
I recommend they use it for whatever they think they're failing at.
Right. So it's a one specific evidence for this thing.
Yeah, like, people are usually with me to work on their health in some way, right? So It's usually about food, but sometimes we also, they want to talk about exercise, or, once they've started working with me, we talk about the thoughts you're thinking and thought habit loops and all of those things. And so I encourage them to just start to note it wherever they are just sure that they're failing and not making any progress and nothing's changed.
Yeah.
That's when I know, like, we need an evidence journal here for whatever this is, whatever you think, whatever you believe is not changing. I do that in my business, right? Because I think sometimes as I've been growing my business over the many, many years I've been doing this, like, I get I get hard on myself too. And I'm like, oh, I haven't done this or I haven't done that. And I'm like, I have to force myself to think, like, no, I've actually, if I look back 8 years or whenever I started doing all this, like, I've done a lot. So
sometimes I think that, you know, a lot of us can get stuck in the comparison game and like imposter syndrome. I'm just curious, and just to get to know you a little bit more, like, how is your current relationship with food since writing this book and doing all this work?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would be doing this work if food wasn't always an issue for me. I mean, it has been my whole life. I don't think I could talk about any of this because I have friends that read the book or maybe hear about what I do in my work, and they don't know, like, they're those people that like forget to eat and, don't, like, oh no, I don't, whatever. I don't understand those people, and they don't understand me. So I think that, yeah, definitely I've always had a complicated relationship with food. I used to be a hardcore emotional eater and big time nighttime binger. I was the like do really well all day, and then once my husband and kids were in bed, I was like all the potato chips, all the chocolate, until I felt nauseous. And I was usually crying because I was so mad at myself, and promised myself I wouldn't do it again tomorrow. And then 1000% did it again tomorrow. So, and definitely felt like I could not stop, like definitely felt like it was just bigger than me, like an addiction, as you were saying. And people I've had a lot of shade thrown at me on the internet over using the word addiction around food, but I do it unapologetically because I think that I know that it is exactly the same principles at play. So people in the addiction community will sometimes get angry about that, but I don't care. So I have learned a lot of tools. I am a lot better, specifically around, and we can get into this later if you want, around the notion of feeling the feelings, which I really think I talk about a lot of different tools, but if I had to pick one, it would be that, is just learning how to actually feel your feelings, good, bad, ugly, hard, uncomfortable, happy, all of them, all the feelings. We're not a society that deals well with feelings. And so we turn to food to numb or avoid, make those feelings go away, make them feel better. So I've gotten much better at that specifically. I'm very good with my feelings now. And that helps me a lot with food, but it's still something I work on. It's still something I think about. It's still the first thing to go if I don't take care of myself, if I don't do all the things. My best friend and I have like a text code where when we have a bad day, it's like, but are you doing all the things? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing all the things. Because, you got to do all the things to take care of yourself. And if I don't, for sure, that's all I'm going to want is junk food. So, but I think that's good. I think it helps me talk to people. I totally understand how people feel with their relationship with food and how hard it is. And I think it gives me more compassion than.
It's relatable too, right? Like that makes me feel hope because I can continue to focus on it. It doesn't have to be resolved. Like resolving it isn't the destination. There's nowhere to go. Right?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to be resolved. Like, I think once you sort of have an issue with food and it's been a complicated relationship, I don't know that it ever just disappears. Like, I think it's always that, how sort of physically even people tend to have sort of an area of their body that when they don't take care of themselves or when things are rough, that's what goes, like whether it's back pain or migraines or digestive stuff. Like I always find that people have sort of their kind of like Achilles heel of this is the first thing to go if you're not taking care of yourself. And for me, I have found that food is that. It is like the canary in the coal mine. If I'm not doing all the things, it will creep back on me. So I just have to, it's my lot in life to keep working on it. But again, I come back to like, it doesn't bother. I don't get frustrated anymore. I feel like I like the journey. It's taught me so much about myself. I have learned more through my journey with food about myself than I ever would have without it. And I am a better person because I can deal with my feelings now. I can deal with other people's feelings now. I can deal with things in a way that had I not had all those issues with food and am still working on all those issues with food, I don't think I would have ever learned any of those things. Why would I have needed to? So I appreciate it.
I love that. This is so, just so you know, like the chat's blowing up. Everybody's like, yes, you're speaking right to me. So if feeling our feelings is a way to productively, make changes, like feel the feelings instead of eating the feelings, how do we start doing that?
Yeah, I mean, this is not for the feeling your feelings is not for the faint of heart. Like if you think about all the things we do that just to avoid our feelings. I mean, food is just one of them. Like whether it's scrolling through social media or shopping or getting into toxic relationships or getting into drama in relationships, or like we do so many things just to avoid being with ourselves, you know? And so I think the biggest part of feeling your feelings is just practicing, and again, this does take practice, allowing them, like literally when you have a feeling, especially an uncomfortable feeling, like stress or worry or anxiety or fear or anger. For women, anger is, I mean, we could talk about anger all night because again, we live in a society where women are not allowed to be angry. Men are not allowed to be sad and women are not allowed to be angry. So these are feelings that are really, really uncomfortable. And so I think the first step is just to practice just letting it be there. Like when you feel stressed, when you feel anxious, when you feel like the sky is falling, instead of running around trying to distract yourself and make it go away, just stop and just let it be there. I don't mean wallow in it. I don't mean like, woe is me, go deeper into it, like let it suck you in. I mean, just sit. You're a strong person. Just sit and just acknowledge, I am feeling very angry right now. I am feeling very scared right now. You know, that alone is such a big monumental step. At least it was for me. Maybe everyone else is like, I do that all the time. For me, that was huge because I realized that my attempt to get away from the feeling was causing me much more anguish than the feeling itself. Like once I just relaxed into the feeling, and again, I'm not talking about wallowing the feeling or, you know, milking the feeling for more. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just stopping and breathing through the feeling, you know, and that alone is huge. And then once you've just allowed the feeling and it's here, right? It's just like sitting beside you on the bed or the couch. Like, here's your fear, here's your anxiety. Then you can start to work with it. Like, then you can start to do some of the work around exploring it, figuring out where it came from, figuring out if it's coming from you or if it's coming from someone else. You can do, I love Byron Katie's work around this. If you've ever read her book, Loving What Is, highly, highly recommend her and anything she says, but she does great work. She actually calls it the work, like capital T, capital W. And I love her work. And a lot of people use some version of Byron Katie's work to explore feelings, to break them down, to question them, to sort of make them, I always think of it as like putting them on the witness stand and like make them defend themselves, make them answer some questions about why they're here and what they want. But again, the first step of that is you have to just allow them in first. You have to acknowledge what it is. I use the acronym NAIL, so NAIL. So I say name it, right? Give it a name. We often don't do that. We just say we're stressed, but stress is a big, are you afraid? Are you anxious? Are you worried? You know, are you hurt? Are you resentful? Like, there's a lot of things that we put in the back bucket of stress. So first of all, name it. Like, what is the feeling? A is for allow it, as I just said, just let it in. Again, we're not milking it. We're not asking for more of it, but we're just accepting that it's here. It's fine. It can just sit here with us. I is for investigate it. So just dig a little deeper. Where did it come from? Every feeling comes from a thought. So what is the thought? What are you believing that is making you feel this way? And then L is look for a better alternative. So as opposed to turning to food or whatever else you use, drugs, alcohol, shopping, social media, relationships, whatever, look for a better alternative. You know, does something need to be done? And maybe not. Maybe you can just let it go to bed, breathe through it, whatever. But sometimes something needs to be done. Sometimes we have to talk about boundaries. Sometimes we have to have a conversation. Sometimes we need to remove ourselves from something. Sometimes we need to take action. But the way to do that is to look for a better alternative, like actually figure out what's the right next step here. Oh, look at the littles.
Is name it breaking the habit loop? Are those like in the book you talk about breaking the habit loop? Can you elaborate on that? I don't remember if it's that acronym that you relate to.
No, that's a little bit different. Although, so the habit loop is cue, routine, reward. So that's the loop of every habit. And the way those two things can kind of come together is that most of our thoughts are habits, right? You thought the same things today that you thought yesterday and the day before. I know every day it feels really intense and very real, but we repeat the same thoughts over and over and over again. We worry about the same things. We stress about the same things. We notice the same things. We get excited about the same things. Like we have thought habits, just like we have habits about how you eat and habits about how you move and habits about how you talk and all of those things. So when you're talking about habits, again, there's always a cue and then a routine, which is the actual behavior, and then some kind of reward, which teaches your brain then that the next time it sees that cue, it should complete that routine again to get the same reward. So with thought habit loops, it's a little tricky because, again, this stuff is all often it's so automatic because we've been repeating it for so long. As I said earlier, we've been practicing these thoughts. So sometimes it's hard to tell your cue, but if you do this work, if you're really awake and really inquisitive, you can start to notice your cues. Often they are things like a certain place, a certain time of day, a certain person is often the cue for thoughts. Another feeling that you have might cue. So you might have one feeling and you might have stress and that might cue fear or something like that. You might have anger and that might cue sadness, the routine is the thought itself, right? The belief, not the feeling, but the thought itself. Every feeling comes from a thought. And then the routine is a little tricky with thoughts, but it's usually some feeling of familiarity. Or when it comes to stressful thoughts, I think that our reward for the stressful thoughts is this illusion that we are keeping the universe running, that we are keeping the balls in the air, that we are fending off danger and bad things happening, especially like as moms and stuff. I think we stress a lot thinking that the reward is that you are somehow in control. So then that trains us then we have that cue again. We should feel stressed because then we feel like we're in control, so and around and around and around we go. It's a little tricky when it comes to thoughts, I know, but it's not as easy as like you come in and you put your keys in the dish and that reminds you blah, 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 like a simple habit like that. Thoughts are trickier, but they follow the same pattern.
Right. Okay, I had one here. Oh, I lost it. I would love to know if Sarah has any suggestions for people who offer guided meditation online, specifically for rewiring the brain around food choices, because you talk about meditation as one of the ways to work on the habit. If you have anyone to recommend in particular.
Oh, do I recommend any guided meditations for reprogramming? Not really. I am a meditation teacher and I do a lot of meditating, but I don't listen to a lot of guided meditation. So I'm sure there's great people out there.
So you host some yourself?
I don't. I do in person, like in real life sometimes, and I do like at retreats and stuff that I've done.
We should do one.
Yeah, that would be great. I love meditate. I just talk about meditation a lot, and I think it's just the most transformative practice, and I love it because anybody can do it, and it requires no equipment or nothing. It does require a bit of time, but as long as you can like lock yourself in a bathroom for 10 minutes or something a day, then you're good. And it's literally changed my life. So I really just went and got my training as a meditation instructor just to deepen my own practice. The thing about meditation, and I think that sometimes people, and maybe this is because I have done some training in it, so maybe I'm a bit of a purist, but I think that sometimes we confuse just sort of guided imagery or guided visualization exercises, which are amazing and wonderful and also fantastic. But meditation is a different practice. Like meditation, the purpose of meditation is really to help you see the separation, the gap between you and your thoughts. I think really the purpose of meditation is for you to begin to sense that you are not your thoughts. Because when you can grasp that, when you can feel that, which is very hard because we are so in our head, like we are so living our thoughts constantly. They're like right here. So to me, meditation gives you a bit of space. And when you have that space, when you can start to see that you are not your thoughts, that your thoughts are actually out here, to me, that's like a superpower, because then that means that you don't have to be the victim of your thoughts, right? That means that you can, if you're the thinker of your thoughts, it means you can control your thoughts. It means you can choose. Again, easier said than done, of course. I'm not suggesting that's simple in any way, but it's life-changing, because that's not how most people are living, right? Most people are living like their thoughts are real. That sounds funny, but it's true. Most people are living like their thoughts are real, when really your thoughts are just things that you made up in your brain. Does that make sense? Am I really out there now?
The story we're telling ourselves.
Yes, exactly.
What would you say to a client that struggles to meditate? Like me personally,
Oh yeah.
I hate it. I can't calm my mind. I feel like it's such a waste of time. I'm thinking about what I have to do. I can't get there.
Courtney, there is research out now that suggests that people like yourself who struggle the most with meditating actually get the most benefit from it. Because every time so I think of meditation as like lifting weights. Okay. So you're doing like reps. So every time you sit and your mind, you close your eyes and you try to focus on your breath or whatever you're trying to focus on. And a millisecond later, your brain wanders off to like what you need to do later, or that email you have to answer, or is that your kids in the other room or whatever. And then now you're gone. And then you notice you're like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be meditating. So you bring your attention back. That's like a rep, right? So every time your mind wanders and you bring it back, you just did a rep. Like if you were lifting weights or something. You can tell I don't lift weights, but like whatever you do with the weights, that's like a rep. And so people who do more reps are getting more benefits. So if your brain wanders and you're bringing it back, and it wanders and you bring it back, and it wanders and doing like a 15-minute meditation, you do like 100 reps, they say you're actually getting more benefit, that your neural pathways around in the areas that relate to meditation are actually stronger. So
and in terms of
but yes, I would say start very slow. So start very short, I should say. So aim for like a 2-minute meditation, and then build your way up. It's just like anything, just like we were saying earlier, it's just practice. You'll get better. You will get better. Also, just know that like the purpose, this idea that's floating around out there that meditation is about sitting for an hour with no thoughts, is ludicrous. Like nobody meditates like that. I know people that have been meditating for 50 years and that never happens. Your brain is always going to think, right? It's what it does. It thinks and thinks and thinks unless you're dead. So that's how it works. You sit, your mind wanders, you bring it back. That's meditation for everybody. That is meditation. And it is 100% helping you. It is 100% working, even when you think it's not. So I would just encourage you to keep at it.
And so when it comes to meditation and emotional eating, because I think that question was kind of trying to find out, like, give me a meditation that's going to help me with my emotional eating. But is it more just about the fact that meditating helps you feel the feels?
I think that meditating, again, in that way that it allows you to start to even just get a glimpse of the idea that you are not your thoughts, and thus you are not your feelings, and thus these are all things that are separate from you. To me, that again gives you it's like a superpower when it comes to then dealing with behaviors that you've created to try and manage those feelings. Because once you realize that those feelings, and again, I'm not trying to negate anyone's feelings. I mean, feelings are great. Feelings are real. All feelings are for feeling. All feelings should be felt. But when we are so afraid of them that we are rushing to things like food to avoid the horror of feeling that way, I think that a practice like meditation that begins to show you that you are actually this incredible, strong being, right? You have this core inside of you of just like pure strength, of like the energy of the universe, or whatever you want to call it, whatever words you want to use to describe what we're living in. That is all, that is true, right? That is what is within you. Everything else, all the other things we're thinking about and worried about and anxious about and stressing about, none of that is real. I mean, that's awful. I don't mean it's not real. Of course, those things are happening in your life and things have to be done and there are responsibilities and all of that. But all the things we make that mean all the stories we have about that, right? Like, I think I even quote Brene Brown in the book when she said that the question she always says is like, the story I'm telling myself right now is, right? Whenever you're feeling anything, I always do this. Like if I'm pissed off, like if I go upstairs right now and the kitchen sink is full of dishes because like my husband and I had dinner and then he decided he didn't need to wash them, even though I'm still working, I will have feelings about that, right? And so when I have feelings about something now, I've done this long enough that I know immediately to say to myself, what am I making this mean? Or as Brene Brown says, the story I'm telling myself about this is, because that's what it all comes down to, right? You're making things mean things, and that's what causes the feelings. And then that's what causes the emotional eating to try to avoid those feelings. Does that make sense? Do those dots connect?
I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
Sophie had a really good question. Why do you think we do so well for X amount of days and then fall off, making it so hard to press reset again?
Yeah, I get this all the time. I know. And I mean, I think it's like, I think we're kind of thinking about it wrong. We think about it in a very linear process, right? We want to just go from A to B to C and we want to get to the end and then we're cured. I don't think it works that way. I wish that it did. That sounds great, but I don't think it works that way. I always think it's more like a dance. Like I think it's like 3 steps forward, 1 step back, 5 steps forward, 3 steps sideways, 8 steps forward, spin around, fall down, 3 steps forward. Like I think we just kind of have to embrace that dance. I wish I had a better, and maybe one day I'll figure out like, oh, this is how you just keep going consistently and never fall off the wagon. I don't know that exists. I don't think that's a human thing. I don't think that's how this works. I think it's just about.
You're like air quoting. Do you think that is almost like a diet culture term in society?
Yes.
Like fall off the
I hate that
wagon?
term. Yes. I mean, I use it because it resonates. People get it. They know what that means, fall off the wagon, but I despise it. Same way I hate the idea of cheat meals. Like I hate these concepts that make it seem as if you're either good or bad, right? People use these words to me all the time. I was so good and then I was so bad, or I was doing really well and then I fell off the wagon. I just think it all sets us up for this idea that you're good or you're bad. You're doing good or you're doing bad. Like, and this is not, I don't think this is what it is. I think we're living our lives. Some days everything's firing on all the cylinders, and other days we're having a harder time. And we're like me, I still go back to chocolate sometimes, it's like, and that's fine. It's okay. It's like, if you've read Atomic Habits by James Clear, I'm sure lots of people have, he talks about the difference between position and trajectory, right? We focus a lot on our position, like I'm here right now and I should be somewhere else, right? Like whether it's our weight or whether it's staying consistent with healthy habits or whatever, like I'm here and I should be here, and that makes me angry. But he always says that we should really focus on trajectory, like, because nothing is static in life. Nothing is static ever, not for a second. And so it doesn't matter what the position is. What matters is the trajectory. Where are you going? Even if it's just like leaning, like go slow, don't stop, where are you leaning? That's all that matters. And it can just be in your mind. Where are you leaning in your mind?
Leaning.
I think that's all that matters.
Where are you leaning? That's good. When I think of good and bad foods, it's changed for me when I was younger. And I think this will resonate with a lot of people. When we're younger, it's about shrinking our bodies, right? We're all trying to be skinny. But as I
always wonder how skinny, like if we just disappeared, like how skinny would it be? Like if we just got so small and so quiet and we just disappeared, maybe that would be the ultimate goal. I don't.
Wow.
Sorry.
That's powerful. Yeah. But as I've grown, and I think as a lot of people evolve and learn, it's more about gut health, right? So now I associate bad foods with things that make me feel bad. And I personally have, a lot of gut issues. So how do you sort of, I don't know, like, are you allowed to feel more guilty if it's actually causing that physical, discomfort? Like, how do you work around that in terms of habits? Like for me, I don't want to have this black and white way of thinking with food, but also those black foods are really hurting my belly,
Yeah. No, and for sure there's foods that we want to be leaning towards and foods we want to be leaning away from. Of course, I just hate the word good and bad because I think that what happens is then we just put that on ourselves. I just know that's what we do, is we just think that I'm good and I am bad. I use words like foods that don't serve me, foods that do serve me, and foods that don't serve me. To me, that kind of language feels good. It feels like I'm choosing, I'm taking control, I'm empowering myself to make decisions that are really going to fuel and nourish my body the way I want to take care of my body. Because I mean, obviously, like, I'm a nutritionist, I'm really passionate about eating healthy food that serves me. So I think it's really important, but I never say good food or bad food. I hate it so much because, again, I know obviously it's fine if people have like a neutral relationship with food, but most people don't. And so then they start to confuse their own personal value with the good and bad food. So those are the words I use, and other people use different words, but I just think we have to be careful with, I saw somebody earlier, I don't, it's, you guys are so
was it
batty.
about the
But
kids?
somebody said, I just want to touch on it because I saw someone say something about how do we stop our kids from doing this, which I think is such a great question, and I get from moms all the time. And as a mom and as somebody who does this, I would just say that the only way you can save your kids from this is by you changing. Like, they will not do what you say. You can talk about this, you can give them my book, you can do anything. It won't matter. They will only do what you do. So they are going to, because I work with women that are adults and they are doing what their mother or caregiver or aunt or grandmother or whatever did. And they don't remember anything but what she said. She probably said all kinds of good things, but they are doing what she did. And again, I don't mean this in the sense of like how, whether you're losing weight or whatever, they listen to how she talked to herself, right? When she said she was bad, when she said that she couldn't have cake because she'd been bad or whatever, that's what they remember. And now that's what they're doing. So it's so important, like, that we change our relationship with food. Again, I'm not attaching that in any way to like what people weigh or anything like that. I'm talking about your relationship with food, which is 1000% in your control. And because your kids are watching everything that you're doing with food, and they will end up hiring someone like me later to try and untangle their relationship with food. And so just really showing them that you are creating a positive relationship with food, right? That food isn't good or bad, that you aren't good or bad based on what you eat, that you are making time for things like self-care, that you are, taking time to make healthy meals, maybe with them. Like, these are the kinds of things that plant the seeds for them of a relationship with food for them. It's such an important piece of the puzzle for moms, I think.
Yeah. Even in terms of, when I first started really focusing on my nutrition, I was so focused on my meal that sometimes I would put a less nutritious meal on the table for them.
Mm-hmm.
Or even like, we buy all the snacks at Costco for the kids' lunch or for the bribery phases of the day. But those are things that we wouldn't touch ourselves.
Right.
What do you think on that for moms and for offering those snacks to our kids in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, this is so hard because I've done all of these things too, but just the truth is that, and we live in a whole world that does this. So it's not just us. We're just doing the norm, the social norm. But if you think about it, all the ways we use food when kids are young to reward them, to celebrate them. When you're sad, we go for ice cream. When you score the goal, we go get French fries on the way home. Like, for your birthday, we give you a big cake covered in sugar. Like, and of course, we do it all with love. We do it all because we want to cheer them up and celebrate them and all the things. And I did all these things with my kids, all of them. But if you think about it, really what we're doing is we're just really reinforcing this food feeling connection, right? That food means love, or that food is what you do when you're sad, or that food is how we celebrate. And it's not great, right? I mean, if you can find, again, we work with what we have. We live in a world where this is the norm, and it's, but I think the more we can just even have that conversation with them, like, even just say, isn't that interesting how, when we're sad, sometimes like mom gives you ice cream in the past or whatever. And like, maybe there's something else we could do, because ice cream isn't all that good for our tummies. Like you were saying, like, Courtney, like, for a lot of people, ice cream's doesn't serve them. And so maybe there's, maybe I think just the more you talk to kids about this stuff, the better. The very fact that you're even having this conversation, even if you don't have the answers, is huge. They're going to be like, what? Wait a minute, what? And I'm not saying don't have birthday cake or any of that, but I just mean we just do have to be cognizant about, like, what are we teaching them about? How are they then going to deal with when they're sad or when they hurt themselves physically or emotionally, or, when they want to celebrate? Like, we do have to think about sort of the path we're leaving. But I think just having this conversation with them, just acknowledging that, like, you've noticed this, and maybe maybe we could do things a little differently, and how else could we do it? Yeah.
I'm changing the way I parent effective tomorrow. Baby steps. Okay, you added at the beginning of the book a declaration, and it was sort of like a commitment to, before we dive in, I invite you to make a declaration right now. Can you elaborate on why you think that element was so important, and maybe speak to the women that, like, just can't commit to herself?
Oh, yeah, I use a lot of declarations, like even before my programs and different programs that I run, when we start them, or I do different free challenges and stuff. And I love to do a declaration because I just think I just think it's important to sort of state to, I say to, like, to the universe, to yourself, to whoever, that you're going to do something, that this is important, that you're important, that making these changes is important. Like, one of the things I see a lot, especially with women and moms, is that I don't have time. I'm too busy, but so many things. And of course, like, I get it. I was right there. My kids are a bit older now, but I get it. And the thing is, it's like, people are always, I see, like, all these tips about, like, how to squeeze it in, and, like, get up at 4 a.m. and do all these things. And whenever I see that, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, no, go to bed, sleep. I just think we expect so much of ourselves. And that's why I talk a lot in the book and in all my work around self-care, because I just think that's such a big piece of the puzzle. And I don't know if you can do this without also making yourself a priority. And I mean that, in the declaration, yes, but, like, the declaration is just a tiny little vote for yourself. It really requires a bigger, not just commitment to yourself, but, like, some other things might need to go. You know what I mean? Like, I just did a video the other day for YouTube, but I was just talking about how, like, sometimes if it's Sunday afternoon and you haven't sort of planned your meals and maybe batch cooked anything for the week yet, and the bathroom's still disgustingly dirty, well, maybe the bathroom just needs to stay disgustingly dirty for the week. Like, we can't do everything. And so I feel like for women, we always end up getting the bottom slot. Like, it's like, whatever, we have to do all these other things. And then whatever's left, the dregs, like just the garbage at the bottom of life, that's what we get. And I just think that needs to change. I don't know if you can do this. I don't know if you can change this without also changing that. And I get people have responsibilities. You can't just say to everybody, like, I'm not doing any of this anymore. No, I understand. But I just think sometimes if we really take a look at our lives and our day and our time, where our time and energy and focus is going, there might be ways, and they might require uncomfortable conversations, and they might require telling your kids that they can't go to all the lessons and all the things they want to do because mom needs some time. And again, I think that this is the best thing you can do for your kids. Like, I think that when kids just see their mom driving herself into the ground so that she can do all the things for them, which I know society tells us we should do, and everybody's telling you should do as a mom, I just think that's one of the worst things you can do for your kids. And I was guilty of this as well. But luckily I stopped when they were still old enough that they saw that. And now that they're older, they tell me all the time, especially my daughter, that she's so glad, like, she realizes now that she doesn't have to do all the things because I said no to a lot of the things they wanted to do, and they're fine. They're super happy, successful adults. And so that's a big rant on a very simple question, but I really feel passionate about it. And the declaration is just a little microcosm of that. But I don't see any other way. I honestly don't. I wish I had some magic, like, oh, well, you can actually fit 30 hours of stuff into a 24-hour day. Like, I got nothing for that. I don't know how you do that. I just think something's got to give. And I think it needs to stop being us. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of like just taking a big, long look in the mirror. And I love what you
Yeah.
said, like, you're important. This is important. And that's really powerful. This is important.
Because again, it's another thing you're teaching your kids or the people around you, even if you don't have kids, like we're talking about kids here, but and yourself, like, what are you saying about yourself to yourself if you just put yourself at the bottom of every list all the time? I just don't think it works that way.
Okay, I think we have time for one or two more questions.
Yeah.
Okay, Kelly asked, do you have any tips on how to come out of a binge? Like how to stop and turn?
Oh, like, do you mean in the moment? I don't know if she's here. Do you mean like in the moment, like how to stop it, or after it's done, how to kind of get back on track? I can talk about both if that's okay.
Yeah, I would love to hear in the moment, because I often feel like if I have one Welch's fruit snack, it's like day's done, may as well have 10, instead of stopping myself there.
Oh, so you're getting into that, like, what the hell effect, that sort of, I ruined it all. Yeah. I might as well eat all the things now. Yeah. That's usually triggered by deprivation. Like, your brain doesn't like deprivation. So then usually, then you hold it all in because you're depriving yourself so much, and then you give in because it's too much. And then you get into that sort of the what the hell effect that psychologists talk about, which is where you do the, I already ruined it all. And I think this too comes from the, well, let me talk about the binge, because that was really the question. I think that as soon as you can, this is where I think meditation would have been really helpful, is you have to kind of get out of autopilot. Sometimes we get into that sort of like, it's almost like a hypnotic state where some people tell me they don't even remember eating things sometimes. So I think that as soon as you can, notice and try to just pull yourself back, like physically into the real world. And you can do this just with breathing. I think that I'm always about, like, this is why I love meditation. I love tools that are just easy, simple. You don't need any tools. You could do this anywhere. You could do this in a restaurant, at a party, at a wedding, on vacation, like wherever it's happening, you can breathe. And your breath always brings you back to the present moment, because you're only ever breathing in the present moment. You can't breathe in the past, and you can't breathe in the future. You can only be breathing now. So if you're focusing on your breath, then you're focused on the present moment in your current body. And as soon as you do that, it'll help you sort of snap out of that sort of hypnotic state that some people get into. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of feelings, right? That's what's always going to happen. Guilt, shame, anger, are usually the big three. And so then it would be helpful to have practiced some of this work around challenging some of those feelings, right? Like naming them. Okay, what am I feeling now? Again, probably some combination of shame, anger, and frustration, guilt. And then identifying, right? Again, that sort of, we're working through that NAIL acronym here, investigating, right? Allowing that feeling. Okay, I'm feeling, because what you're doing there, Courtney, is you're trying to get away from the shame, anger, and guilt by eating more things. So you just got to allow the shame, anger, and guilt, if that's what you're feeling, and then sort of investigate them. Okay, where is this coming from? Well, it sounds to me from what you just said, like it's coming from a thought that you believe, which is that you have to be perfect. You have to, whatever that means to you, perfect for the whole day. Otherwise, what's the point? Right? Something like that, which is super common. So that's just a thought. That's just a belief, right? That's not true. That's just a thought that you've chosen to have. And you've probably had it so many times over and over and over that now it's just become a habit. And a belief is just a thought you've had many, many times. So if you've thought it many, many times, it's a belief now. It feels very true. And so now you're having a whole bunch of feelings because of it. So part of this work is about sort of uncovering that thought, that belief, and then challenging it. Is it true? Right? Like, Byron Katie has like her 4 questions. The work is really just 4 questions. She's written like a million books and has all these retreats and everything, but it's really just 4 questions. And it's just, is it true? Can I know for certain that it's true? How do I react when I believe that it's true? And who would I be without this thought? That's really her entire life's work. But it is really will change your life if you ask those questions to any thought that is giving you grief. So your thought of, I have to be perfect, otherwise, what's the point? You can ask it those 4 questions. And then she also encourages what she calls turnarounds, which are where you just kind of try on for size, flipping that thought around. Okay, if the thought is, I have to be perfect, otherwise, what's the point? A turnaround could, she suggests to try to come up with 3 of them. So one of them could be, it's actually really good if I'm not perfect, because it allows me to feel less constricted and less like I'm in a prison here. I don't know. Again, these might not be true either, but it's just good exercise to turn them around and just show you that they're just thoughts that you make up. And then we just repeat them so many times that they become a belief, and then they create a whole bunch of feelings. And then we have behaviors based on those feelings, which again brings us back to the emotional eating.
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is you keep talking about the work, and that's like an aha moment, you know, for me, and I'm sure for so many women, is like, this is work. You have to decide to work on yourself and work on your wellness and give a shit and, you know, believe that you're important.
And you have to enjoy it. I think, again, like, I think we should, any way you can, however it works for you, I think you have to embrace doing the work, because I don't think it ever ends.
Yes.
And so I've noticed that there's sort of a difference between people who resent the work, you know, and are just sort of bitter about it. And why am I still having to do this? Why am I still having to, see, that's one thing I don't feel. I actually, sure, sometimes I'm frustrated that some of these, my old like cravings and things come up, or my old sort of patterns around food. But I love doing the work, because I feel like I learn something new all the time, and I just go deeper, and I grow, and that helps me in so many other areas of my life, right? Like, food is a doorway. I think our relationship with food is like the most wonderful doorway. It's like it's like a magical doorway towards all these other things in your life, because the way you relate to food, all the reasons you're using food, right? All those feelings, those are coming up in all the other aspects of your life. It's just, again, the behaviors you have around food, the binging at night, or the eating when you're stressed, or the, you know, whatever, that's just a manifestation of all of that other junk. So it's like an opportunity. It's a doorway. It's like this is an entry point into you figuring out a whole bunch of stuff about yourself.
I think that's the perfect way to end this call on a positive note of getting excited and enjoying it. Sara, thank you so much for spending the past hour with us. I really appreciate it. I would love if you could tell the women on this call how they can work with you if they'd like to dig deeper, and what you sort of offer, where to find you.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, first of all, thank you for having me, because this is just so fun. I would just do this all day long. It's my favorite thing to talk about. So I hope it was helpful. I hope some seeds was planted somewhere along the way for folks. Yeah, I'm easy to find. You can find me on my website. I run a whole bunch of different programs. Change Your Brain, Change Your Body is my most well-known sort of flagship program. In fact, I think, is that Shelly down there? I see Shelly. Shelly's one of my CYB members. And I just launched yesterday. Some of you, I think, have already taken it, but we just launched a new quiz. Who doesn't love a quiz? Because I created a quiz to help you kind of identify what I'm calling your brain's eating language, like how your brain thinks about food. Because I think and I've come up with 5 of them. I think that once you understand that, then you can actually speak your brain's language. Because what I've learned in working with thousands of women is that everyone's a little bit different in terms of where they kind of fall in terms of how their brain actually thinks about food. So if you go to sarabest.com/eating quiz, Sara with no H, sarabest.com/eating quiz, you can take the quiz, and it's super fun. And yeah, and then you'll be on my email list, and you'll learn all the things that you might want to do with me.
Thank you so much, Sara. And I really think we should loop back and do a guided meditation. I think that sounds really interesting.
That does sound fun. I'm totally
Yeah.
This was fun. Thank you so much, you guys. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for your great questions. Thanks for hanging out.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. Everybody, if you're going to post about the call tonight, tag Sara Best I think it's Sara Best Nutrition on
Your best
IG.
nutrition. Yeah. Follow me on IG.
And
You guys are so great.
congrats on taking the time for yourself tonight to listen to this call and just to think about yourself. Have a great night, guys.
Bye.